to speak, Madam Speaker, in this issue. Even in Kerio Valley, I lost quite a number of people who were abducted, and then some of them, they were found in rivers somewhere. Some of them, they were found in West Pokot. They were thrown in the forest. In the name of, they were criminals, they were bandits. And you will find that sometimes they just innocent people. So we want to see a functioning, a working security system in Kenya. People who can follow a rule of law. We cannot just have as our security officers, or even including senior government officers, when they are going somewhere, they go with all the cameras, with all the media houses. They go issue press conferences, and in the afternoon, they are back to Nairobi. The same security continues in those places. We want to see a serious, functioning national security. Madam Speaker, I want to support my colleague, the Honorable.
The Honorable Member for the Honorable Mutunga, Mr. Honorable Mutunga.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to also support my colleagues on this particular issue. Honorable Speaker, as he read through the statement, he mentioned how people are being picked. It is systematic. It is happening on a continuous basis. And there doesn't seem to be an end to this. Honorable Speaker, sometimes we remember with nostalgia when we used to have CIA in this, CID, a working CID in this country. When people could not do anything anywhere and run and get away with it. I remember the time when people could not even write anything in their own houses. The time of seditious publications. Honorable Speaker, we need the police organized. The police needs to get to their work. They need to get people everywhere. If there is a problem with the police, if the police are not enough, or if the security system is not enough, we need also to think of arming the civilians. There used to be NPR, even in town, even in this city, there used to be NPR. I remember Patrick Shaw was shooting criminals in this town. There were several others who were actually hunting criminals and killing them. These are criminals who have started in a certain corner of Kenya. Honorable Speaker, there is no guarantee that they will not go everywhere in this country. There is no one who is safe. If they can abduct somebody from Bonny Forest, tomorrow they will abduct somebody from Lamu itself, Lamu town. Next day they will abduct somebody from Kitui. Then they will come to Nairobi, then they will go everywhere. They must be stopped. And to stop them, we must see seriousness in the function of the police and the function of the security system. And the issue of having NPR needs to be looked into because local communities know exactly what happens. Sometimes they have insights, but they do not have the means to contain these criminals. So there is need for us to think about having the local community engaged in having concerted efforts in containing the insecurity in some of these areas. And I want to reflect on my own constituency, Tigania West, where we border Isiolo. And there has been issues of insecurity for a very long time. And we have requested the government to add, they have given us only 10 NPR. We need about 40. If we have 40 because there are 400, each one of them can contain 10. So we are saying, Honorable Speaker, we need to, if we cannot have the police, armed police taking care of this country, let us arm the civilian and we'll sort out the problem. Thank you, Honorable.
The Honorable Member for Mount Elgon, Honorable Kapondi. Honorable members, let's keep it brief because I know that this concerns many constituencies. So I think let's make it brief so that many people can have a chance.
Yeah, Madam Speaker, I want to thank you for this opportunity to add my voice on what my colleague from Ijara has raised. And Madam Speaker, this issue of insecurity around that area, I think it requires a relook in terms of strategy. Look at this case of Bonny. It has become an endless story to an extent that whatever is happening currently there is a forgotten case. So, Madam Speaker, bearing in mind that for the first time in the history of this country, the security sector is in the hands of the local boys from Northeastern, I think it is the humble time for the leadership from that area to sit down and come up with strategies so that this situation is eradicated once and for all. Madam Speaker, there is an issue that my senior Farah has raised. Adding a militia can also assist organized locals because the area is vast and you cannot overwhelmingly depend on the security services on the ground to sort out the mess. Because in majority of the cases, you may be surprised that they are also contributing to the problem. Because what is happening, and I've been raising some of these issues in committee meetings, is that the security personnel that are pushed to some of these areas as a security personnel that are facing disciplinary action. So somebody who is a disciplinary case, somebody who has a problem with alcoholism is posted to these areas. What kinds of security support are they going to provide? Obviously, they will be part of the problem. So we need an urgent solution so that this problem cannot be recurring every now and then, so that we should not be sitting here lamenting instead of providing solutions. So, Madam Speaker, I would suggest, and in the affirmative, you know, when disappearances happen in rural areas, that is a signal of a failure on the part of security to sort out the mess that is there. So we need to do something urgently, and we need to do it now. Colleagues from Northeastern, we need to take advantage of the government initiative that the locals are in the forefront of leading the security sector in this country, so that we should stop lamenting. We have solution. We put this thing in the back burner of history. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Before we proceed, allow me, honorable members, to recognize the presence of the following schools who are seated in the public gallery. Kwatito Secondary School from Kilome constituency, Makueni County. Little Stars Academy from Embakasi West constituency, Nairobi County. Delight Kids Center Primary School from Embakasi West constituency, Nairobi County. And lastly, I recognize the presence of Westlands Primary School from Westlands constituency, Nairobi County, seated at the Speaker's gallery. And on my own behalf and that of the National Assembly, I wish to welcome the teachers and the students of those schools to the National Assembly. Thank you. The Honorable George Murugara.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to support the request made by the member for Wajir, or for Injara, as regards the disappearance of the 3 constituents due to insecurity in that area, not just in that area, but in the greater part of the northern Kenya and northeastern Kenya. It has been persistent. And it is the high time a solution is actually found, because we cannot live in this country with areas, certain areas, especially the northern parts of Kenya, being insecure, while we have some of the best security forces, very well trained and professional, and they are available. Somebody somewhere is not doing its job, is doing his job, and this is why you hear members trying to drag in the name of His Excellency the President, which is actually not proper. It is improper in that it is because of the work he has done, he's earning that recognition, including the plea being made to him to assist the country of 80. This is not unusual, even in other areas of the country, including my own constituency, because about a month ago, some 3 traders from the Raka constituency did undertake a journey to Isiolo, to a town known as Kinat for business, livestock business. On the way, they were kidnapped, they were robbed, and in fact, they were killed. Their bodies were discovered 2 days later, and we are to bury this gentleman coming Saturday. Up to today, the only news we have for the people of Tharaka is that investigations are going on. And this is not good enough. To the police, to NIS, to the DCI, and everybody, this is not sufficient. It is the high time we go back to where we used to be, when you would actually not cough. And the then, they were NIS with a different name, intelligence, whatever their name was, the special branch would actually get you from underneath your bed. This is where we should be. We cannot be waking up to crime after crime when actually we have security agencies that are top-notch in the world, very well trained. Some are taken to Israel, some are taken to European countries, to the Americas, and they come back when, in our view, they are actually ripe for the job. But soon after that, it is abductions, it is killings, it is loss of lives in unexplained circumstances. They themselves cannot explain. It is the high time we put this to a stop. Let us have investigations that are complete, not pending forever, and also let's not edge on statements that the security agencies were not aware. Thank you very much. I do support.
The Honorable Member for Marsabit, Honorable Naomi Wako. I'll come to you, Honorable Member for Homa Bay Town.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to support this very important statement by Honorable Abdi Ali of Ijara regarding the disappearance of 3 male adults. And it is something that is very common to many of us who come from northern part of Kenya and northeastern. And Madam Speaker, especially in Marsabit and northern part of Kenya, we feel that the life of wild animals is more important than the lives of human beings. And that is why the disappearance of these 3 male adults is not taken seriously, because the families are going through a lot of stress and suffering. They don't know whether their loved ones are alive or not. And sometimes we even feel that the attention that the security agencies is giving is not worth the life of these people. So, Madam Speaker, the insecurity in northern part of Kenya has been going on for many years. And when you report the procedure that you go through, because they take a lot of time, even for them to accept that something serious has happened. I don't know whether it is their way of responding to issues or any distress call or any report they get, but it is as if whoever is reporting is not given any attention. And that is why, Madam Speaker, I feel the police service needs to be reformed completely. And now that we are digitalizing everything, especially from those areas, can we propose that they digitalize, especially that area whereby somebody somewhere is suffering and a life is in danger, so that they can quickly act and either save a life or act quickly, so that the people who are affected can feel that at least they have gotten the attention of the government. Some 3-4 years ago, some people were abducted here in Nairobi from Marsabit. And we followed the issue until even after elections. And up to date, we don't know whether those people are alive or they are not alive. And the families, the children, the neighbors, when they remember that, and it is something that they keep remembering. You know, they call us as leaders and we have no answers. And I'm sure even Moshimiwa and all the others who are from that area are going through the same stress at this particular time. And that is why today we need to demand protection of every life in this country. It doesn't matter where you come from, who you are, and what you are doing. To protect people's life is the priority and should be the responsibility of our government. in my own county, and especially in Saku constituency. Madam Speaker, people cannot do business in my county anymore, and especially Saku, because during the night, the town or the village is taken over by others, and they loot. They can drive away your animals while you are watching. They can, get into your house and kill you. They can come to your shop and you cannot say anything. When you report, it is after 6-7 hours that they can come and do or start the investigation. And by that time, you've lost everything, you've lost a life, and even that person has already died and buried. And so that is why we feel that the losing of innocent lives through bullet or through disappearance has become the order for the day, and we need to overcome this. We used to say, especially those of us who come from northern part of Kenya, some time back we used to say, it is when you get to Nairobi, to Isiolo, that you feel that you have seen Kenya. And this happening, the killing and the disappearance of our people happening, makes us feel that we are not yet fully adopted or accepted as Kenyans. So, Madam Speaker, I support this, and it is my prayer that these people will be traced and their families can be updated. Thank you.
Honorable Member for Homa Bay Town, Honorable Kaluma.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to add my voice to this matter. Honorable Speaker, may I first join you and the House in welcoming the students and pupils who have come from across the country to observe the proceedings. And maybe in pride, Honorable Speaker, indicate to them that the presiding speaker today was my teacher at the law school. And so it is just in order that you've also come with your teachers. We are praying for you, and we are looking forward to a time when your teachers will be on the seat of the speaker, and possibly several of the pupils and students here present today will be speaking granted permission by their teachers the way you have, Honorable Speaker. And I'm saying this in jest because it's the first time I'm confirming the Honorable Speaker taught me. Honorable Naomi Wako does not know that. And so it's a pleasurable thing when we have teachers and students also in the House. Honorable Speaker, I've served in the Security Committee of the National Assembly for the past 10 years. And in that period, I've toured all these disturbed parts of our country, from northeastern to Ijara to Boni Forest and all those people, all those places. I want to thank the honorable member who has brought this matter to the House by way of statement for bringing it up. Honorable Speaker, to lose a life is a very serious matter. And it's a very painful matter, because the first duty of any state is to protect the lives of its citizens. To lose 3 cannot be any less serious. And an Honorable Speaker, I'm confirming it is not only the 3. In my tour of duty in the areas being spoken about, Kenyans wake up not knowing whether they'll return home alive in the evening. Kenyans bid their children bye in the morning not knowing they will hug them again in the evening. And you listen to members blaming it on the police and other services. I think the time has come for us to be much more serious. There is a very big problem with the management of security in Boni Forest and other places. Honorable Speaker, when I toured these disturbed areas, I met the police officers. And the police officers who are assigned duty in these operation zones, once you go there, you are forgotten. I met officers who are posted in these areas and they stay there for 20, 23, 27 years from the time of recruitment. They're not being moved back to serve other places. These police officers are not being promoted. These police officers are not being rewarded. These police officers do not have equipment. Honorable Speaker, these are areas which are infested with a lot of improvised explosive devices. You can imagine a person is crying they are under attack and you are being required as a police officer to go in ordinary vehicle. You've seen these officers being blown up as they are going to help each and every time. We want to say that let us give these officers equipment. Let us facilitate them. Let us treat them as other Kenyans. And then let us bolster the security in those areas. Honorable Speaker, it is very painful. When you want to know a senior police officer in Nairobi, Honorable Speaker, you look at their waistline. You have police officers with over 56, 70 waistline. They are too big in the middle than the body. But they're the officers being promoted every day, wives of people, relatives of people. Other officers serving the country are rejected outside there. I want to ask Honorable Speaker that this matter returns to the House in a better form where it can be discussed in depth and serious solutions can be preferred around those areas. Bonny Forest is a very small place. Why don't we have enough police officers there, even if they are walking on foot, to clear this so-called Al-Shabaab at once, instead of our watching as people are being butchered like goats and other animals the way we watch every day? Yet police officers are idling here. Why don't we have KDF officers romp this place we call Bonny Forest? Within 1 week, we have our security apparatus and we clear this area and we shield it from external aggressions in the future. Honorable Speaker, strategies can be applied. I pray that the honorable member pursues this thing. Let us have a motion or a form of proceedings before the House over this matter on which we can give resolutions which can be actionable, Honorable Speaker. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable members, I know because it's an emotive issue and it touches on your constituents, I exercise my discretion to allow you to speak at length on this point. But I think this is a matter members also can raise with the Cabinet Secretary for Interior. And also, I just want to bring your attention to Standing Order 43, Members' General Statements. Notwithstanding Standing Order 30, on hours of meeting, the Speaker shall interrupt the business of the House every Tuesday at 6:30 to facilitate members to make general statements of topical concern. A member who wishes to seek leave to raise the matter under Standing Order shall, before 3 p.m. on the day of the statement to be made, hand to the Speaker a written notification of the matter, but the Speaker shall refuse to allow the request unless satisfied that the matter may properly be discussed in the House. No member making the statement under this standing order shall speak for more than 3 minutes unless you have the permission of the Speaker. So, but then it goes on in 44, talk about statement hours. So I know because it's an emotive issue, we ventilated a bit on it, but we shall leave it for the next Tuesday we have. I know next Tuesday is a public holiday, but the Tuesday following that, I encourage members to bring it because I know that there's another one, which is another similar statement that is awaiting approval of the Speaker that is similar. So let's hope we can do it on a Tuesday. So I think for now, let's just move to the next order. Okay, next order.
Questions.
So I hope Honorable Yakub, you stand advised, yes? Thank you. Do we have any questions? Who are the owners of the questions? Okay, I can see on the list here, ordinary questions. The Honorable Member for Matuga, Honorable Kasim Tandaza. Is not in the House. Okay, the Honorable Member for Bahati, Honorable Irene Mrembo. Are you present? Okay, you may proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise on standing order number 42G. My question is directed to Teacher Service Commission. Could the Commission clarify whether not being a bona fide local of a county was one of the criterion for disqualification from being recruited from junior secondary school internship positions in the county? Enumerate the parameters, if any, used to clarify an applicant as a local or non-local of a particular area for purposes of being employed in that area. 3, explain why Ms. Edna Mino Nzioka of ID number 22445112 NTSC number 998705, a resident of Bahati constituency, was turned away during interviews for junior secondary school internship position at Kiamaina Primary School in Bahati constituency on 1st August 2023. Explain the administrative measure it has put in place to ensure that recruitment of junior secondary school interns is transparent and free of any form of discrimination. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. I think this will be replied before the Departmental Committee on Education. Next question is by the Honorable Member for Moiben, Honorable Professor Phyllis Barto. She's not present. The next question is by the Honorable Member for Homa Bay Town, Honorable Peter Kaluma.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to ask question number 451 of 2023 to the National Police Service Commission. Honorable Speaker, could the Commission explain the transfer policy for police officers in the National Police Service, more so with regard to officers deployed in operation or hardship areas? 2, explain the promotion policy in the National Police Service, particularly with regard to officers deployed to serve in hardship and operation areas. 3, state the measures regarding transfer and promotion of officers who have served in operation and hardship areas for over 3 years. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable, okay, that will be replied by before the Departmental Committee on Administration and Internal Affairs. Next question is by Member for Bamachoge Barabu, Honorable Engineer Obadia Nolfason.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I would like to place the following 3 questions to the National Police Service Commission. Could the Commission, 1, explain the transfer policy? Could the Commission explain the circumstances under which the National Police Service Commission terminated the services of Mr. Japheth Mochama Mauti, force number 90638, with effect from 21st November 2016? The second question, could the Commission explain why the National Police Service Commission is yet to reinstate Mr. Mauti after the High Court acquitted him on 25th of July 2019 for all charges trumped up against him, including alleged possession of 720 rounds of ammunition and 5 liters of rifle oil? The third question to the Commission, could the Commission state the action it has taken to reinstate Japheth Mochama Mauti to the National Police Service and compensate him for the 7 years of joblessness that he has endured following his unlawful dismissal in 2019? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. The question will be replied before the Departmental Committee on Administration and Internal Affairs. Thank you, Honorable Obadia. Next order.
Order number 8, the National Transport and Safety Authority Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 36 of 2023. First reading. A bill for an act of Parliament to amend the National Transport and Safety Authority Act.
Next order.
Order number 9, the Land Control Bill, National Assembly Bill number 39 of 2023. First reading. A bill for an act of Parliament to regulate certain transactions in land for connected purposes.
Next order.
Order number 10, motion review of the scope of education bursary scheme under the National Government Constituency Development Fund and capitation for learners in primary and junior secondary schools.
Mover, the Honorable Edward Muriu. Cancel.
Madam Speaker, thank you for the opportunity to present this motion, to move this motion before the House. But before I move the House, allow me to correct Honorable Kaluma, who is very proud of you that you are his teacher at the University of Nairobi, and also let him know that we were schooling together at the University of Nairobi. So when he's talking about his teachers, he should not also recognize me as one of your teachers, Mr. Karuma, Honorable Karuma. Thank you, Madam Speaker. The motion on the review of the scope of education bursary scheme under National Government Constituency Development Fund and the capitation of learners in primary and junior secondary schools. Madam Speaker, that aware that Article 43(1)(f) of the Constitution, as read together with Article 53(1)(b) and C, entitles every child to free, quality, and compulsory basic education. Cognizant of the fact that access to funding for education immensely contributes to the realization of the universal access to basic education in the country. Appreciating that Section 48 of National Government Constituency Development Fund, NGCDF Act 2015, establishes education bursary schemes for every constituency towards access of basic education. Noting that Section 48A of NGCDF Act further allows for affirmative action mechanism of allocating additional funds to cater for education bursary scheme and other teaching and related activities, including the feeding program. Concerned that NGCDF Act allocation of bursary schemes under the fund are not more than 5% of the total constituency allocation in a financial year, and thereby limiting the number of cases that may be supported to access the basic education. Further, concerned that the NGCA board has only been approving bursary support to secondary and tertiary education and not primary and secondary, and not primary and junior secondary schools, cognizant of the fact that the failing to extend the bursaries to the primary and junior secondary schools on assumption that the two levels of education are free is a misnomer. Since the government capitation per pupil is inadequate to cater for the mandatory material requirement for the competency-based curriculum education, that is CBC, thereby affecting the pupils whose parents are unable to meet the attendant cost, and deeply concerned that continued exclusion of allocation of the bursary to primary and junior secondary school violates Article 27 of the Constitution, which talks about discrimination and slows down the attainment of universal basic education in Kenya. And now, therefore, this House resolves that the education bursary scheme under Section 48 of the National Government Constituency Development Fund, Act 2015, be extended to support learners in primary and junior secondary schools to cater for competency-based curriculum requirements. 2, pursuant to Section 48A of National Government Constituency Development Act 2015, the NGCDF board is in each constituency approves additional allocation to education bursary schemes in order to support the teaching and learning related activities associated with CBC in education, including the school feeding programs. And 3, the government revises the capitation per student in primary and secondary school from the current 1,200 per child per year to 7,760, being the minimum optimal capitation, factoring the new CBC education system and prevailing high cost of living. Madam Speaker, this is an issue which is more of a moral and a constitutional issue. Madam Speaker, if I invite you to Article 27 of the Constitution, the article says very clearly that every person is equal before the law and has the right to equal protection and equal benefit. 2 says equality includes the full and equal enjoyment of all rights and fundamental freedoms. Article 43, Madam Speaker, if I can invite you, is about economic and social rights, and says that is Article 43, 1B. It talks about 1C talks about every person has a right to be free from hunger and to have adequate food and acceptable quality. Madam Speaker, Article 53, which does more on the children rights, it says in particular Article 53, B and C, it says every child has a right to 1, that's B, to free and compulsory basic education. C, every child has a right to basic nutrition. Madam Speaker, the motion before you addresses the issue of not only on the basic education as provided for by Article 53, but also on section C of Article 53, which provides that every child in this country is entitled to basic nutrition. Madam Speaker, you may find that in this year's budget, we provided for 620 billion to improve the quality of education. But that budget, Madam Speaker, did not touch on the quality or provision of nutrition of our children, and that goes hand in hand. Basic education goes hand with basic nutrition. And therefore, Madam Speaker, sir, Madam Speaker, I'm talking about the motion here is seeking, number 1, to move the Ministry of Education to provide adequate provision for capitation in primary and junior secondary school, because the current capitation only was revised in 2015, but when the new curriculum started, that capitation has not been revised. And that's why it remains per child 1,420 instead of 7,760. Number 2, Madam Speaker, Section 48 and Section 48A of National Constituency Development Fund Act 2015 provides that bursary the amount capitated for bursary is only that 5%, which, Madam Speaker, is not adequate to cater for secondary schools, to cater for TVETs, to cater for universities and colleges. Number 2, under Article 27, the National NGCDF Board has only been approving bursary for secondary and tertiary education, leaving out the primary school students, the primary school pupils. Madam Speaker, under Article 27, that is discrimination. You cannot provide for one part or some of the students and fail to present the other. The second issue, Madam Speaker, is the moral issue. The bursary provided for in the secondary and universities, Madam Speaker, that amount of money goes straight to support their feeding program, because education has already been supported by the capitation. Now, here is the moral issue, Madam Speaker. The secondary school students are being well fed. The university and tertiary students are being well fed. Whereas the students in primary schools are being left out without being fed. And Madam Speaker, as a mother, how can you feed an adult and leave out a child who has just been left, who has just come out from the mother's breast? And therefore, Madam Speaker, I'm moving the motion that the NGCDF board need to comply with with section 48A and provide for bursary to support feeding program in our primary school, Madam Speaker. Thank you very much. And I request Honorable Adan Dawood, Member of Parliament for Wajir West, to second the motion. Thank you. Hapana, rafiki yangu, tunajuana.
Proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I am from Wajir East, Wakili, but that's okay. You got the Wajir part right. Madam Speaker, I rise to second this motion. This is a great motion coming at this time. It has two objectives, Madam Speaker, and those objectives are in line with Article 53 of our Constitution. And those objectives of this motion, one is to increase capitation for primary and junior secondary school, and second is to breathe life to Article 53. In terms of increasing capitation for primary and junior secondary school, Madam Speaker, this country has adopted a new curriculum, which is called the CBC. This curriculum is very intense. It is practical based, and it requires a lot of time and resources for these students to learn. This curriculum also requires very consistent and continuous assessment of the children. Madam Speaker, it has now fallen to the parents to fund this curriculum and not the national government, as envisaged under Article 53 of our Constitution. As eloquently said by the mover of this motion, Article 53 says that every child has the right to free and compulsory education. It is compulsory for our children to go to school, and that school should provide free education. But if the capitation that was approved in 2015 is not adequate to provide for the CBC curriculum, then the idea of free education will not be there. Therefore, this is a motion that has come at the right time to emphasize that compulsory and free education. The second objective of this motion, Madam Speaker, is to breathe life to Article 53. Article 53 talks about the compulsory free basic education, but also talk about compulsory basic nutrition. Basic nutrition, Madam Speaker, as this article says, is providing food for our children. A hungry child will not learn. A hungry child will not learn, and it is important. Food can only be given if the capitation is increased. Madam Speaker, it is unfortunate that this House passed 630 billion shillings budget for the Ministry of Education. Those 630 billion have not gone to our schools. Many schools across the country have not even received that very meager capitation that we have approved in 2015. And one wonders, then why do we give this huge budget to the Ministry of Education? Madam Speaker, every child has a right to a free and compulsory basic education. But in parts of this country, other than the lack of resources, there are lack of teachers. Not because we have not approved for hiring of teachers. Actually, in the last budget, we have approved for the hiring of 30,000 teachers. But again, because of bureaucratic snafu and because of bureaucrats who think that they are bigger than the constitution of this country, that has not happened. Madam Speaker, there is a monster called the Teacher Service Commission, a commission that we created as one of our Chapter 15 commissions. I hope and pray that this House and the people of Kenya will take TSC back to the Ministry of Education as a statutory commission and not as a constitutional commission. TSC does not even take orders from the Ministry of Education. It is the minister who comes to Parliament to request for budget. When we give that budget to the ministry, the minister cannot even order for transfer of a teacher who has done something wrong. Madam Speaker, this motion has come at the right time. It is a motion that will give right to our children and will give basic education to our children and will take care of the nutritional needs of our children when they're in school. And for that reason, Madam Speaker, I support this motion, and I hope other members of this body will also support this motion. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I second and support.
Thank you. Honorable members, before I propose the question, I wish to recognize the presence of St. Teresa's Secondary School from Gatanga constituency, Muranga County, who are seated in the public gallery. And on my own behalf and that of the National Assembly, I wish to welcome all the teachers and students of St. Teresa's to the National Assembly. Thank you. Honorable members, I now propose the question that aware that Article 43(1)(f) of the Constitution, as read together with Article 53(1)(b), entitles every child to free, quality, and compulsory basic education, cognizant of the fact that access to the funding for education immensely contributes to the realization of the universal access to basic education in the country. Appreciating that Section 48 of the National Government Constituency Development Fund, NGCDF Act of 2015, establishes education bursary schemes for every constituency towards access to basic education, noting that Section 48A of the National Government Constituency Development Fund Act further allows for affirmative action mechanisms of allocating additional funds to cater for education bursary schemes and other teaching and learning related activities, concerned that the NGCDF Act caps the allocation to bursary schemes under the fund and at no more than 35% of the total constituency allocation in a financial year, thereby limiting the number of cases that may be supported to access basic education. Further concerned that the NGCDF board has only been approving bursary support for secondary and tertiary education and not primary schools, and the recently created junior secondary schools, cognizant of the fact that the failing to extend bursary to the primary and junior secondary schools on the assumption that the two levels of education are free is a misnomer, since government's capitation per pupil is inadequate to cater for the mandatory materials required for the competency-based curriculum, CBC, thereby affecting the pupils whose parents are unable to meet their attendant costs. Deeply concerned that continued exclusion of allocation of bursary to primary and junior secondary schools violates the provisions of Article 27 of the Constitution and slows down the attainment of the universal basic education in Kenya. And now, therefore, this House resolves that the education bursary schemes under Section 48 of the National Government Constituency Development Fund Act of 2015 be extended to support learners in primary and junior secondary schools to cater for the competency-based curriculum requirements. 2, pursuant to Section 48 of the National Government Constituency Development Fund Act of 2015, the NGCDF board in each constituency approves additional allocation to the education bursary scheme in order to support for the teaching and learning related activities associated to the competency-based curriculum education, including school feeding programs. And last three, the government revises the capitation per student in the primary schools from the current 1,420 per year to at least Kenya shilling 7,760, being the minimum optimal capitation, factoring the new competency-based curriculum education system and the prevailing high cost of living. Those members who want to contribute, please press the intervention button. I can see the Honorable Member for Gilgil, Honorable Martha Wangari. I can see the Honorable Ferdinand Wanyonyi. I can see the Honorable Dorothy Kiara. So after Honorable Wangari, we can go to Honorable Dorothy Kiara and then move on like that. Thank you. Proceed, Honorable Wangari.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And from the onset, allow me to congratulate Honorable Moreu of Gatanga for bringing this very important issue on the floor of the House. Madam Speaker, we have for the first time are seeing children from primary schools being sent home for fees. It has never happened. You walk in the streets and you find a child and you ask, why are you not in school? They have been sent home for small monies in primary schools. And this, Madam Speaker, you can actually be able to see we have a big problem. And you know the way JSS was structured, it was initially meant to go to secondary schools. And if it went to secondary schools, then they would have gotten proper capitation as it is in the normal secondary school, Madam Speaker. But today, these children are 11-year-olds on the streets, not going to school, and they cannot raise that 3,000, they cannot raise that 4,000 that is being asked to be able to provide food and other necessities in the school. Madam Speaker, what this means, we are joking with a very serious issue and actually precipitating a crisis in our country, because we are talking of an 11-year-old or 12-year-old who is not able to access education. And Madam Speaker, what that is doing, as I said yesterday, you have children, especially girls, being lured to early marriages, to early pregnancies, to defilement cases because they do not have the food and they don't even have sanitary towels. Madam Speaker, if we cannot provide food and sanitary towels for our kids, then we are failing as a nation. Madam Speaker, this issue of capitation, even the small capitation of over 1,400 that has been put in this motion, even that one is not forthcoming, is not on time, and we have allocated the money in the budget for JSS. I have some schools in my constituency and I can actually sample a few, Madam Speaker. I have Kigogo Primary, I have Mbegi Primary, I have Olesirwa Primary, I have Dome. I even have a special school called Gilgil Special School that has not so far received the small capitation from the Ministry of Education. Madam Speaker, we not only need to relook the way the NGCDF is wired, but more importantly, actually, the money that should go to JSS should come from the Ministry of Education. The money we are doing and giving as bursaries, Madam Speaker, is never enough, especially for the ones that are big constituencies, Madam Speaker, like mine. You get 11,000 or more applications, and the money you give is to maybe 3,000, 5,000, all the way maybe to 7,000, and you're giving a maximum of 3,000 shillings for day secondary schools, Madam Speaker. If we add another burden, then we will need to open up the brackets. The maximum that has been set as 35% is not sufficient to cover our day schools, to cover our secondary schools, and not cover JSS, Madam Speaker. That means we are struggling with a generation. And Madam Speaker, this problem also between the TSC and the Ministry of Education must actually be addressed. And I had the seconder talk about it, because at the constituency level, you are having a problem of who is issuing orders or directives in the schools. Is it the Ministry of Education official or chair or constituency rep, or is it the TSC, especially on the running of schools and the teachers, Madam Speaker? This confusion is not helping the already bad situation and must be addressed from the cabinet level. Madam Speaker, I want to support this motion and actually hope that we can be able to actually look at JSS the way it should be, because we have now gotten teachers in some schools, not all of them, but the capitation issue must be looked at per child, so that we are able to ensure that every child is not sent home. Parents already struggled to get their kids to JSS. And you remember the issues we had that time. They needed new uniform, they needed desks, they needed all manner of things when reporting. And Madam Speaker, I've seen parents struggle to buy these things. And then they are told they need to pay fees. They come to CDF, we tell them we do not fund primary schools. That confusion, Madam Speaker, is actually going to bring a serious issue, a generational issue, and we are going to lose very many children. That's why you're seeing the transition this time and this year has not been as good as it's been in the other years, Madam Speaker. So I support this motion, and I hope that we can actually get to the implementation. The implementation committee should be able to pick it up immediately so that we have a report in this house very soon to be able to know what have we done, because I have no doubt we will actually pass it in this house because it's very important and cross-cutting in all the constituencies. But implementation of motions, that is where the problem is. Let the Committee of Implementation take it up, bring a report to the house.
Thank you very much, Honorable Martha Wangari. The Honorable Dorothy Ikiara, nominated member.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I wish also to add my voice in this very, very important motion. And I want to thank Honorable Wakiri Edward Mureu for bringing this very sensitive matter before the floor of this House. Honorable Speaker, I too appreciate that Article 53(1)(a) entitles every child to free, quality, and compulsory basic education. Honorable Speaker, access to funding for education is not a choice. It is something that is enacted in law, and it is something that we must follow to the letter. Honorable Speaker, I share in the pain of the parents who are seated down in their homes, thinking that education is free, and every time these children go to school, they are found in the roads every day, day in, day out, Honorable Speaker, because they cannot afford some of the necessary revenues that they are being charged at the school level. I also sympathize with the teachers, Honorable Speaker, because it is not the interest of any teacher to send any child out of class. But Honorable Speaker, it is in common knowledge that no operations can continue without money. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, I support this very important motion. I want to, on the outset, say the Ministry of Education, which is charged with the responsibility of ensuring that they follow the policy to the letter. They are the ones who are failing us in this sector, Honorable Speaker. The Teacher Service Commission mandate is very clear. I've heard Honorable Mheshimiwa Wangari saying they would like to know the difference between what the Teacher Service Commission is supposed to do vis-a-vis the Ministry of Education. The work of the Teacher Service Commission is purely management of teachers. That is why we fought for the Teacher Service Commission to be an independent commission, and they manage teachers, employment, transfer of teachers. The work of the Ministry of Education is policy, and computation directly falls in the Ministry of Education. Honorable Speaker, improving quantity and quality of education, therefore, requires the policy to be addressed. Both demand the demand and supply chain, Honorable Speaker, is very, very key here. For CBC to be a success, there needs to be provisions of more textbooks, classrooms, blocks, trained teachers, etc., so as to ease the supply side constraints of education. Number two, Honorable Speaker, The students also need to be fed, which is the demand constraint to education. For example, Honorable Speaker, in Ghana, it was established that one of the reasons why children do not attend school and that their parents cannot afford to pay the levies charged by the schools. If this does not happen, Honorable Speaker, then the nutritional aspect is never taken care of. And this is the more reason why we find the enrollment in our schools is so constrained. We don't have enough students in class because, Honorable Speaker, they cannot be able to meet their basic needs. Honorable Speaker, I support this motion that indeed capitation monies needs to be increased. But by so saying, Honorable Speaker, it does not mean that we eat into the NGCDF kitty, because, Honorable Speaker, NCDF kitty has its own obligation. Honorable Speaker, it is the responsibility of this government to ensure that this capitation is increased, Honorable Speaker, so that it can be able to cater for the needs of the vulnerable and the less advantaged in the society. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, it is not a favor when we seek for additional allocation to the education bursary.
Thank you, Honorable Ikiara. The Honorable Zamzam Chimba, member for Mombasa County.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika, na mimi nichukue nafasi hii kuweza kuzungumzia mjadala wa leo, na ni dhahiri shahiri kuwa watoto wengi Mheshimiwa Spika wako nyumbani kwa sababu especially wale ambao wako katika elimu ya chekechea mtihani ile matakwa yao katika shule, na ndio maana leo mimi nasema katika sheria ya bure katika shule za chekechea, katika shule za msingi kwenda mbele, elimu ni bure. Na mimi nataka kusema hivi Mheshimiwa Spika, mjadala huu ni mzuri sana tukizingatia kuwa tunataka tuweze kufanya kuwa serikali waongeze ruzuku ya watoto katika skuli, ili hawa watoto ambao wako katika shule za msingi ambao tunawaona wengi wamekuwa machokora kule barabarani, pengine akienda skuli unaona anaulizwa remedial fee, unaona anaulizwa kitu fulani, nenda ukanunue, mzazi hawezi. Lakini ikiwa tunaweza kuongeza ruzuku ama capitation katika haya maskuli, itakuwa wazazi wana wepesi wa kupeleka watoto shule, na tunaweza kupigana na ndoa za mapema. Manake kusema kweli katika CDF na hata NGAF, NGCDF na NGAF, sisi tunashughulika kulipia masomo ya sekondari na masomo ya katika shule za skuli za college. Na mimi nataka kusema hivi Mheshimiwa Spika, elimu huanza chini. Uweze kumweka mtoto awe na msingi mzuri wa elimu, lazima mtoto apate chakula kizuri, lazima mtoto awe darasani kila wakati, lazima mtoto akitoka nyumbani hata kama tumbo liko bila chochote, akifika skuli atapata kitu, atapata ruzuku, ataweza kufocus na masomo yake. Mheshimiwa Spika, katika kaunti yetu ya Mombasa ama gatuzi la Mombasa, Mheshimiwa Spika, ukienda pale ndani ya town Mheshimiwa Spika, utapata watoto wengi sana wamekuwa ombaomba barabarani. Kwa sababu gani? Wazazi sisi tumewacha kufuatilia, na hasa katika serikali wameweka elimu ya bure lakini haifuatiliwi kazingatiwa vizuri. Watoto wakipelekwa skuli Mheshimiwa Spika, wanaulizwa mambo mengi sana. Mara utapata mtoto yuko barabarani, ukimuuliza anakuambia nilifukuzwa vitabu, nilifukuzwa kitu fulani, nilifukuzwa kitu fulani. Kwa hivyo mimi naomba serikali, kama tuliweka elimu ya bure, tuweze kuzingatia mtoto akifika shuleni. Hii elimu ya bure inakuja na package, inakuja na vitabu, inakuja na chakula, inakuja na mambo yote ambayo yatamfanya mwanafunzi akikaa darasani awe anaweza kuzingatia masomo Mheshimiwa Spika. Lakini kila uchao hawa watoto wanafukuzwa nyumbani. Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi naweza kuwahisi wale wazazi ambao maisha yao ni duni. Ndio maana kama Mama Mombasa nasema tufuatilie sheria, na najua ipo katika sheria. Nafikiri kuna lawyers ambao wako hapa, sisi wengi hatujafuatilia sheria kikatiba vizuri, lakini wako hapa wabunge wenzetu ambao wanaweza kuelezea kwa kina kuwa kuna sheria kuwa elimu iwe ya bure. Lakini watoto wakifika skuli, Mheshimiwa Spika, wanaulizwa mambo mengi sana, na ndio mimi naomba kama Mama Mombasa County capitation ama kuzidisha ama zile grants ziweze kwenda pale shuleni, hawa watoto wapate kusoma bila kufukuzwa, bila kuulizwa mambo mengi. Mheshimiwa Spika, katika kaunti yangu Mheshimiwa Spika, watoto wamepata mimba za mapema, watoto pia katika shule ya msingi wanahitaji sodo, wanahitaji kuangaliwa vizuri Mheshimiwa Spika, na bila sodo mtoto utapata amerudi nyumbani Mheshimiwa Spika, anakutana na mtu njiani anamwambia mimi nitakupa 100, nitakupa 200, njoo tupite kwa kando nikufanya hivi na vile. Mwisho wa kwisha Mheshimiwa Spika, mtoto anapata ujauzito, hawezi kuendelea tena na masomo. Ndio tunaona mimba za mapema zinaendelea kukithiri katika kaunti zetu ama katika taifa letu. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, na mimi naomba waziri wa education, waziri wa elimu, sisi tunauliza sodo ziko wapi? Sodo ziko wapi? Sodo ziko wapi? Kama mama kaunti nauliza, maana yake tumetolewa budget ya kupeleka sodo katika skuli, mpaka leo hatujapata hizi sodo na watoto wanahangaika katika masomo yao. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi naunga mjadala huu, isipokuwa nasema iko katika katiba, ni iweze tu kufuatiliwa na kusisitiziwa na kutiwa mkazo. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa wa Mombasa. Kwa wale ambao hawaelewi sodo ni kitu gani, ni sanitary pads. Ndio sababu mheshimiwa anasema tunataka sodo. The Honorable Pauline Lenguris, member for Samburu County. Board members, please bear with me. I know a few of you have walked to the table, but I'll do my best to balance. We can see the screen. The screen is good. There is a lot of interest in this motion. You may proceed, Honorable Member.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I stand here to support the motion. We know that education is key in our country, and we have a lot of challenges.
Sorry, Member for Samburu. What is out of order, Honorable Kaluma?
Yeah, I thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I'm standing pursuant to Article 53, Sub-Article 1B of the Constitution to ask Honorable Speaker whether the proposed resolutions number 1 and 2 of this motion, which I agree to be very important, are constitutional. And Honorable Speaker, I'm seeking your ruling before we debate the matter further. Honorable Speaker, I may not have a problem with the proposed resolution number 3, but the resolution number 1 and 2 propose the application of the national government constituency development funding to cater for matters of basic education. And Honorable Speaker, to be clear, the provisions of Article 53, Sub-Article 1B, to which I've adverted, reads, if I may, that children, every child has the right to free and compulsory basic education. So should we be asking how we ensure that education is free and compulsory, or be thinking of how we can resolve to apply monies of CDF to sustain it? And Honorable Speaker, I'm saying this while aware that even as we speak, particularly for secondary school, so many students are currently at home because the capitation which should be going to each and every student is about 22,000. Only half the money has gone. We are in a state where even the very basic capitation provisions cannot be catered for. But that is not the issue for now, Honorable Speaker. The issue is, could the chair rule on the constitutionality of resolution number 1 and 2? it being the case that under those provisions of the constitutions I've cited, education at this level and everything relating to education in terms of their resourcing should be free and compulsory. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Obviously, I'll give the first opportunity to the mover of the motion, the Honorable Wakili Muriu.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving this opportunity to respond to Honorable Kaluma's concerns. But before I come to the point, allow me to recognize again the presence of St. Teresa Secondary School, which hails from Gatanga constituency. Madam Speaker, this is one of the best performing schools in my constituency. And I want to assure you that this is a great learning opportunity. They can see their member of parliament in action, whereby I'm trying to make sure that they're not only well-fed, but make sure that as they learn, they are not only get the books and the good classes, but they also are well-fed. I promise them, Madam Speaker, that they'll be getting a cup of tea at 10 o'clock, a good lunch, and 4 o'clock tea. So at least again, because I know basic quality education starts with the stomach. Thank you, Madam Speaker. On the issue about the concerns of my learned friend, Honorable Karuma, I want to say this. Number one, there is nothing unconstitutional. And I think Honorable Member Kaluma, he should have confined his argument either opposing or supporting the motion. Why am I saying that, Madam Speaker? The first resolution seeks to breathe life to Section 48 and Section 48A of NGCDF. And Section 48A states clearly that the national government Constituent Development Fund can extend the 35% which it allocates, can be able to give much, much more to bursary beyond 35% for purposes of what you call affirmative action and address the socio-economic issues, one of them being the school feeding program. Secondly, Madam Speaker, if you read carefully, and I think that's why Madam, my Honorable Karuma did not invite you to this, if you read Article 53, Article 53 is clear, especially Article 53, B and C. And B says, every child has a right to free and compulsory education. That is B. C, Article 53, B says, C says, every child has a right to basic nutrition. But I'll speak up, the point here is very simple. We are trying, this motion is trying to breathe life into Article 53. Because you find, as I said earlier, Madam Speaker, we are provided a huge budget on education, 630 billion in this financial year. How much money of that which is going to cater for nutrition for our children? How do you expect a child to learn when he's hungry? Finally, Madam Speaker, I invite you to Article 27. Article 27 is about discrimination. And Article 27 says clearly that every person is equal before the law and has a right to equal protection and equal benefit of the law. Section 2 says, equality includes the full equal enjoyment of all fundamental rights. Madam Speaker, the point here is very simple. When it comes to allocation of school feeding program, and our budget, we only allocate to what we call arid and semi-arid areas. And we leave out. That is in breach of Article 27. Secondly, when it comes to application of Section 48 and Section 48A of NGCDF Act 2015, you find that the NGCDF board only allocated bursary to secondary school, tertiary, and universities. To do what? To go and feed those children. Madam Speaker, the point here is very simple. Everybody has a right to be protected. The NGCDF bursary is supposed to be catering from the primary all the way to university. So at least we do not violate Article 27. Number two, it's a moral issue. How do you feed adults and leave out the children? Remember, Madam Speaker, even the medical experts have said a child requires food at the age of 10. If you give the child food above the age of 10, the brain is already stunted. And if you're talking about quality education, Madam Speaker, how can we be able to achieve quality if we don't achieve quality at the basic level? And there, Madam Speaker, that's why I'm saying Honorable Karuma's intervention need to come in as his contribution to this motion. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Wakili Moreu. I would like to give an opportunity to the Honorable Getonga Morogara, member for Tharaka. Just focus on the matter of constitutionality.
Yes, constitutionality.
Which has been raised by the
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I don't agree with Honorable Kaluma that this motion has any element whatsoever of unconstitutionality. First and foremost, is relying on Article 53, which stipulates that education, basic education, is supposed to be free. That article does not say it is supposed to be cost-free. It says it is supposed to be free, which means there is an element of cost, but borne not by parents, but by the government. Therefore, we must have at the back of our minds that taxpayers' money will be used to fund the basic education of our children. Who runs our taxes? It is the government. Honorable Muriu is making a proposal that part of those taxes are applied in a different way to at NGCDF, which is government money, which is our taxes, should be varied slightly so that it is applied also to cover basic education in the primary and junior secondary. There cannot be any unconstitutionality as far as that proposal is concerned. But if Honorable Muriu had proposed that parents have to come and chip in a different way, we would be arguing on whether that is not in breach of Article 53. With those remarks, I urge you to find that there is no breach of Article 53. We are actually debating, we are making proposals to the government. There also may be resolutions, but it is at one time, proper law is going to be brought so that this is properly entrenched into the law and it is enforced. But as far as this is concerned, we are within the constitutional rights. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Morunga. I'll give two more. I'll give the Honorable McLeod.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to agree with Senior Counsel Murugara that there is actually nothing unconstitutional on this matter. In fact, Honorable Muriu is just bringing live what us members of parliament should have done after the promulgation of the new constitution. Madam Speaker, the Kenyan children, or the children of Kenya, actually the premise of the constitution were very clear. Honorable Wakili Muriu is putting it right that the children of Kenya has a right to basic nutrition. You know, we are not about to encroach into CDF, Madam Speaker, but we are saying the taxpayers' money should be applied to provide nutrition for the children of Kenya. Madam Speaker, on the matter of basic, definition of basic in terms of education in Kenya is actually right from nursery all the way to Form 4. Madam Speaker, if that is basic, therefore, if that is basic education, then, Madam Speaker, if that is basic education, that means we should not be seeing children, in the streets or in the roads going home because of school fees. We should actually be able to keep our children in school all the way to Form 4. Madam Speaker, this is what needs to apply, and it has been the work of Parliament to enforce this legislation, because after this motion, Madam Speaker, this shall lead into actually a bill to ensure that we appropriate sums of money, either through capitation by the Ministry of Education, not through the CDF, to provide for basic increased capitation, and increase money for nutrition in our schools. Madam Speaker, remember, we have now added something called CBC, which has increased the number of classes in primary from PB1 all the way to junior secondary, grade 9. Madam Speaker, the CDF money is not enough. And we need, therefore, this house in the next appropriation or in the
You've
next
made your
budget,
point.
allocate resources. Madam Speaker, I agree with Honorable Miriu. That is what Parliament must do to protect the citizens of Kenya and the children of Kenya from complete oppression and discrimination, Madam Speaker.
You've made your point very well. The last one, honorable members, will be the Honorable Johanna Ngeno, member for Emurua Dikiri.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I would just want to, like what Mheshimiwa Kaluma wanted to seek your guidance. So in your ruling, Madam Speaker, I want you to consider the fact that Article 53, though it is talking about free access to free primary or basic education, it doesn't mean that the children or the learners who are in those schools are not taught by paid teachers, because the teachers who are teaching these particular pupils are paid by the government, not by the parents. The schools where these learners are studying in are built by the government, which of course doesn't mean the education is free. It means the parent will not incur any cost in terms of infrastructure, in terms of teaching, in terms of any other program that could be introduced by the government, which one of those programs is the school feeding program, which Mheshimiwa Muriu is trying to introduce. So it doesn't mean education is free. It means that it is the government that is catering for that cost. And therefore, we will not, or this particular amendment or this particular proposal by Mheshimiwa Muriu does not, Wakili Muriu, does not contravene the constitution, because it is asking the government, either through NGCDF or through the Ministry of Education, to cater for the school feeding program. And therefore, it is not actually taking the incurrence of the burden of incurring the cost to the parents. So I believe it is not actually contravening the constitution. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable members, though I'd said that is the last one, I'll give an opportunity to the Honorable Kombe. Make it 2 minutes, please.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika. Ama kwa hakika wakili Mriu yuko na mipango mizuri kwa watoto wa Kenya, lakini pale ameweka kipengee cha kwamba NGCDF ikaweze kusimamia elimu ya msingi, hapo ameenda kinyume na amekeuka katiba. Maana elimu ya msingi ni bure na ni ya lazima, na kwamba ni bure na ni ya lazima haijamaanisha kwamba haigharimiwi. Ni serikali inagharimia hiyo elimu ya msingi, na wakili anastahili kuwa anawakilisha haki, lakini yeye mwenyewe anageuka katiba na kugeuka mgandamizi wa haki kwa wale wa elimu ya juu. Mheshimiwa Spika, kilichoko na ambacho binafsi naunga mkono, wakili angesema zile hela zinazopatiwa elimu ya msingi ziongezwe 100%, ingekuwa ni jambo la busara, na hapo hapo tungeweza kuunga mkono na serikali ingeweza kuongeza hiyo capitation kwa hiyo elimu ambayo inastahili kuwa ya bure na ya lazima. Asante.
Thank you very much, honorable members, for your I choose not to give a chance to the Honorable Mureu. It may turn out that it is the learned friends speaking from both sides of the aisle. I appreciate all your contributions. But honorable members, I would like to say that, remember, this is a motion and we are urging. It's not a bill. Two, before a motion gets to this house, it has gone through several approval processes, including the office of the speaker and the House Business Committee. And the motion has been proposed and it has been seconded, and several people have already gone into the motion and debated. I would like to encourage the Honorable Kaluma that I'll give you an opportunity and you have a chance to oppose. So for now, it is my considered opinion that we proceed. And for that reason, honorable members, I'll go back to the honorable member who was on the floor, and that is the member for Samburu County was on the floor. So honorable members, we proceed with the motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me the chance again to stand on the floor of this House to support the motion by Honorable Mureu. Actually, Madam Speaker, Article 53, 1A entitles students of this country a basic right for education, compulsory education for all children of this country. And Madam Speaker, I question if that is the case in this country today, because some things are written on the documents, but actually if you look at the practicability of it, it's not true. Because I know, Madam Speaker, that there are many children in this country who are not accessing education today. And Madam Speaker, they are not accessing education, not because they don't want, but because they are not facilitated to access education. So, Madam Speaker, when we think about compulsory, we should create policies that will ensure that all children will access education in this country. There are a lot of challenges that are facing the education sector today. Madam Speaker, if you want to retain our children in school and offer quality education, there are several factors that must be considered by the ministry that is oversighting the education programs in this country. We are talking about the school feeding program, and the areas that are targeted by the school feeding program in this country, mostly they are south regions. I happen to come from one of them. And we are facing, Madam Speaker, a lot of challenges with the school feeding program. And we know that that was one of the moves to ensure that children can access education well, their nutritional value is also taken care of. Madam Speaker, the food that is coming to the schools have been erratic. It is not consistently coming, and we have seen most children dropping out of school because they are not accessing food that they are supposed to get. And that will ensure also the retention of students in our schools. Sometimes the food comes late when they are nearing closing, and sometimes a whole term can go without the school getting the school feeding program food. So that's one of the aspects that we should look as a members of this House, so that we ensure that education and food of our children, that will ensure the nutrition value of our children, they should go together. Another aspect, Madam Speaker, is the issue of infrastructure of our schools. We have introduced just the CBC program recently, and most of the schools have no classrooms. The children are supposed to transit to the grade 6, grade 7, 8, and 9, and in some areas, there is no infrastructure. In some instances, the parents have been forced to buy desks, to buy books, and also to buy uniform, which is very expensive to some of them who come from poor families. And this has also prevented the children from accessing education. So before introducing any program, I think those are the structures and policies that the government should ensure that before they start anything new, they should ensure that the infrastructure has been put in place, and to ensure all the students from all over this country can be able to transit into the new program. Because we have been faced with a lot of challenges with the new CBC program. The parents have been stressed with getting the money for the uniforms for their children. Some of them cannot afford for the food because children are supposed to move to the nearer schools where they can access the grade 7, sorry. And some cannot even have money to buy the desks because they were forced to buy the desks. So every time they run to their members of parliament or to their leaders to seek for support. Another issue is the books. There are institutions in this country that children cannot even get books for studies. So these are the programs that the Ministry of Education and the TSC should ensure that we have the required infrastructure in place before we go and implement a new program altogether. And I support strongly the capitation to be increased in schools so that the capitation money can ensure that our children can get food when they are in school. They can also get the textbooks that are required for their learning, and small improvement in the schools can be done. And thank you, Madam Speaker, and I support the motion.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member for Samburu County. Honorable members, we have several students and teachers. I would like to start with the ones seated in the public gallery. This morning, we have Mode Ngera Secondary School from Laikipia West, Laikipia County. Kabati Secondary School, Laikipia West, Laikipia County. And Shalom Junior Academy, Kikuyu, Kiambu County. On behalf of myself and the House, we welcome you to continue observing proceedings in the House. Honorable members, I now invite the Honorable Kaluma.
I thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I stand to support this motion in parts and oppose the motion in several parts. Honorable Speaker, this motion, number one, proposes that the amount that can be allocated towards bursary be increased beyond the 35% restriction or limitation that is currently under the NGCDF Act of 2015. Honorable Speaker, I agree and support that part. Let each constituency, so long as they are performing national government functions, have the free range based on their priorities to apply those funds within those functions. If it is that the bursary component of education would require more than 35, Honorable Speaker, so be it. There should be that freedom to ensure that not only school infrastructure are put in place, but that students are actually enabled and they are in school. Honorable Speaker, I also support the prayer number 3, which is to the fact of requesting this House to resolve that government revises the capitation per student in primary schools from the current 1,420 shillings per year to at least 7,760 per year, being the minimum optimal capitation, factoring the new CBC education system and the prevailing high cost of living. Honorable Speaker, CBC has come, and I agree with my colleagues, there are very high cost ramifications. We debated the matter of CBC before. The kind of uniform the students at CBC level, more so junior secondary, are being required to wear, the change in the facility needs, and even the infrastructure needed has increased. So indeed, if we are going into this new curriculum, there should be increased capitation from government to sustain it. And that I agree with. Let me say, Honorable Speaker, that even as we urge increase, let us also as a House push very hard that the government ensures that these monies are remitted to the schools in time. Honorable Speaker, we have national exams, particularly Kenya National Examination, KCSE, Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education Examination, coming just in a few weeks' time. And across the nation, students have been sent back home for fees. And I've seen people, even on Twitter, even on social media, condemning teachers. But teachers are in a situation where they cannot manage the schools. They are at pains having students in school waiting for exams being prepared without food. And as parents or people standing in as parents with these students, they don't know what to do with them. The fact of the matter is that the capitation, even at the level of secondary education, honorable members, is some 22,000 shillings and some hundreds on it. So far, the academic year is ending, but the Ministry of Education has only disbursed half that money, actually barely 11,000. So I've had teachers, even from my place, asking me, Kaluma, you are pushing for your students to be in school, but you are not able to keep students we cannot feed. Let us urge the Ministry of Education, and we budgeted for these monies. That money is being available, and money is available, Honorable Speaker. Let us stop this pretense that money is not there. I work in the security committee, and I've supervised even how much money we collect on the e-platform. Last month alone, we did over 199 billion shillings on the e-platform alone. Let us have our priorities right. Let us not just push for capitation to be increased, but as a parliament, push that once these capitations are increased, money is actually available to the school managers to be able to use the money. Honorable Speaker, in terms of resolution number 1 and 2, I maintain the position that we cannot be spending monies under the NGCDF to resource basic education requirements. And Honorable Speaker, let me emphasize that basic education is defined under the Basic Education Act, and that definition excludes secondary education going forward. That is why, because Article 53, sub-Article 1 says that basic education shall be free and compulsory, no money in CDF can go there. The money can only go to those others which the government is not obligated. For basic and free and compulsory education, what we need to push is for money to be given directly for them by the government. On account of those facts, Honorable Speaker, I oppose in part and support in part. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
What is out of order, Honorable Dr. Pukose? And please bear in mind that the Honorable Kaluma has already concluded.
I know, Honorable Speaker. I know, Honorable Speaker, and Honorable Kaluma is a seasoned lawmaker in this House. But I got confused in that when you say you support in part and you oppose in part, normally when we vote in the House, Madam Speaker, you can either vote with amendments, bring an amendment so that it can go the way you want. There is no vote that comes in part, that yes or no. Yeah. So you can only make an amendment to it. And being also one of the speakers panel, I think he needs to guide the House properly. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I am inclined to go back to the Honorable Kaluma. Would you like to comment on the serious matter raised by the Honorable Dr. Pukose?
Yes, Honorable Speaker, we are of course not dealing with a bill or voting. We are contributing to a motion. We'll be voting on it later. But for clarity, Honorable Speaker, and for good order in the House, let me say I support with those reservations.
Thank you very much, Honorable Kaluma, and thank you very much, Honorable Dr. Pukose, also for raising that. Honorable members, I do not see the Honorable Indikiri Mogambi in the House, is next on this. The next one will be the Honorable Johanna Ngeno, Emukuru Dikri. Honorable members, I'm very keen. He made contribution on the constitutional matter that had been raised by the Honorable Kaluma, so he did not really debate. So it is your chance, Honorable Member for Emukuru Dikri.
Madam Speaker, my constituency is called Emurua Dikir. I know it's a very hard name to pronounce, but Madam Speaker, thank you for also giving me this opportunity to contribute to this motion by Mheshimiwa Wakili Edward. Madam Speaker, before I even begin my contribution, I would just want to urge the member to look into making it as a bill or as an amendment, so that when we vote in this House, it becomes a law. It goes into the annals of history in this country that we have done a law that goes towards helping our kids in primary and secondary schools access education in a free and fair manner. But Madam Speaker, I really want to support it. I want to support it because I feel that the problems that we are facing as a country, which includes the high cost of living, is faced by everybody, including even our kids in schools. It is not something that we face it in cities. It's not something that is faced by people in towns and just centers. It is a problem that is faced right to the core, to the villages and to the schools. Madam Speaker, the late President Moore introduced the milk program, which was actually a very good idea. And I think that idea, Madam Speaker, was to bring the students who are absconding schools, and especially those who are coming from mass areas. It is actually during the milk days, Madam Speaker, when schools were full. I'm among those people who would attend school when it was a milk day. Madam Speaker, so many of us went to school because of that program. So many people went to school because of that program. Madam Speaker, I have been sitting even with the members of the society in my constituency, especially those who have children in day schools, day secondary schools. And their major complaint, Madam Speaker, is the lunch program, the feeding program, that is money for lunch. Madam Speaker, if they have that problem in the secondary part, how about the primary part? How about the basic education part? So, Madam Speaker, I'm in full support. And my first proposal, Madam Speaker, if Mheshimiwa Mureo will bring it as a bill or as an amendment, I would wish him to amend the part of in the Ministry of Education, first to provide, when we are providing for capitation, when we add a budget to provide for school feeding program for students and pupils right from PP1 to Standard 8 and from Form 1 to Form 4, so that we budget for that money, so that before we even delve to the amount that is allocated to CDF, Madam Speaker, we budget in this house money meant for a school feeding program, so that when we are sending money for capitation, we also include money for feeding the pupils from PP1 to Standard 8. Madam Speaker, I'm in full support, because we also understand most of the students come from, or the pupils come from far areas. They food for something like 5 kilometers to their homes. So when they are sent home during line time to go and maybe eat before they come back, Madam Speaker, it becomes hectic. It also removes part of their concentration in class. So I fully support this particular motion by Mheshimiwa Muriu to ensure that we add either in CDF or we put it in as part of the capitation. My only request to Mheshimiwa Wakili Muriu is to ensure that you bring it as an amendment, because this motion is just a motion and it is going to end up in the coffers, in table room, and it will die there. Just bring it as a motion. We will support you, we'll vote for it, and we will ensure that we budget for those particular school feeding programs. I thank you, Mheshimiwa.
Thank you very much, Honorable Johanna Ngeno. Honorable members, I have a lot of interest in this motion from the right side. So when you see me giving many people on this side, it's because they are the ones who have expressed. So I am going to the Honorable Ngelechei, member for Elgeyo Marakwet County. If you have intention to speak on this motion, kindly on the left side, please make sure that your card is on, so that we can see you on the screen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving the chance to contribute in this very important motion. Madam Speaker, we have a problem, and I want to fully support the motion by Honorable Muriu, because at times we do forget a lot in this country that our future is in schools. Our future is in basic education. And our future as a country relies basically on education. That is how we are going to get doctors. That is how we are going to get engineers. That is how we are going to get experts in any and every other field. And that is how this house will continue for generations to come. Madam Speaker, we need to refocus and we need to think about the CBC. We need to think about the students, especially in Standard 7, Madam Speaker. And since the capitation of schools does not involve basic education, Madam Speaker, these students of class 7, grade 7, were meant to suffer, and they suffer more than any other student in this country, Madam Speaker. If I give you an example, especially where I come from,
One day while I was moving in within the county, I met students of a school called Nyawa Primary School, and I asked them where they were going in a scorching sun, and they told me they are going to laboratory in a secondary school that is 10 kilometers, like around, I think it's between 5 and 10 kilometers, called Anin Day School. Madam Speaker, I asked them, they told me we have to be scheduled time because even the school they are going to is a day school with minimum resources. And there is a big secondary school within that area, but they cannot go to that secondary school because this is a day school and this is a primary school. Madam Speaker, I've been thinking about the person who came up with the idea of CBC or came up with the idea of being domiciled in primary school, Madam Speaker, never thought that these students will need resources like laboratories and they don't have any resources. Madam Speaker, I think it was the best thing if these CBC students, grade 7, would have been domiciled in secondary schools. And this idea of secondary schools being counted with a capacity of beds and not capacity of chairs, Madam Speaker, is a wrong idea. They should be open to these students, especially of primary schools within those areas so that they can benefit with the resources. Madam Speaker, I want to support and I wish to say that it is about time we rethink about basic education because these secondary school going, I don't know if they are secondary schools, I get confused because they are primary schools actually because grade 7 is domiciled in primary school. They have to think, when you say basic education, these students must be fed. Otherwise, it will not be basic if a school will miss school because of feeding. Number 2, provision of sanitary towels to girls. Otherwise, there will be a breakdown in between of those students who are in grade 7 right now. So, Madam Speaker, I want to support and I want to request that someday in this house, we should also relook at the issue of opening up more space for transition from primary schools to secondary schools, even if it means all the secondary schools allow students who can access the facilities at the well-established secondary schools. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Parashina Sakimba, member for Kajiado South.
Okay, thank you, Madam Speaker. I wanted to support the motion by Honorable Wakili on the issue of on the motion of the review of the scope of the education bursary scheme under NGCDF and capitation for learners in primary and junior secondary school. Madam Speaker, I wanted to also support comments by other honorable members on this issue of junior secondary school. They have been left aside. This is a group that has been neglected in many ways. When you only talk about us including them in giving them a bursary, it is in order. Even if you are giving a small amount of 3,000 shillings, because these people are affected. Now the students are at home and they are becoming to our homes and our offices, try to see what they can be done to them. But to bring to your attention, Madam Speaker, this group again, you know very well that the teachers, the employment of teachers who are teaching in junior secondary schools, there's a shortage of teachers in the entire country concerning the GSS. If you go again to the issue of classrooms or even labs, now in many places we don't have even labs for them. So, Madam Speaker, there's a big challenge, and I'm saying that we cannot afford to have them included in the NGCDF allocation. Then it will be meaning that we have been affecting the issue of universal basic education under Article 27. So I propose that even if there is because there is a capitation already going on, but also the ministry, I don't know if they are aware that they are affecting these students, because even the capitation that is going on now on the money that they are supposed to receive, it is being delayed. I beg this house, let us consider this is a class or a group that was formed when our country and our government was not ready to take care of them. So when Honorable Wakili brought this issue, we propose that he's also going to do the small amendments and make it a bill and be enacted in the law. He will go in history and remembered as a member of parliament who brought a very good bill that is going to take care of the students of the Republic of Kenya. There's a big challenge, GSS, and I support the motion, and we are ready to listen on the amendment. And when it comes to the bill, I'm on the opinion that I'll also support the same. Thank you so much, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much, Member for Kajiado. The Honorable Lydia Mizigi, Member for Taita Taveta County.
Asante sana Bispika, hata mimi kunipatia fursa ili niweze kuchangia hapa. Na kwanza natangulia kwa kumpongeza wakili Mheshimiwa Edward Mureu kwa kuliwaza hili na kulileta hapa ili tuweze kulizungumza na tuweze kulichangia. Jambo hili nataka kuliunga mkono. Nisema ni vyema sana kwa kuweza kuwa na mpango mzima ya hii pesa iweze kuongezwa kwa mfumo huo wa CDF ili masuala ya kupata chakula shuleni yaweze kuwepo. Bispika, naweza kukueleza wengine wetu hapa tuliweza kusoma kupitia changamoto mingi sana, na motisha ambayo ilikuwa nyingine inatupeleka shuleni ni yale maziwa yalikuwa maziwa ya Nyayo. Na basi yale maziwa yalikuwa yanatusababisha sisi tunakuwa shuleni, na wakati mwingine yalikuwa huo ndo mlo tu utaupata kwa siku ile. Kwa hivyo naunga mkono kabisa ya kwamba kuwe na chakula, watoto wa shule wapate chakula shuleni, hata kama ni mlo mmoja kwa siku. Tunajua changamoto zilizoko katika familia mbalimbali siku hizi. Kuna wengine wanaenda hata bila mlo mmoja manyumbani zao kwa siku, na kwa hivyo kama wataupata mlo huo shuleni, basi wataweza kwenda pale shuleni. Vile vile tunajua ya kwamba mpangilio huo itakapofika wakati wake, pengine Mungu akiwezesha, kwa sababu tunamuomba Mheshimiwa Mureu ya kwamba asiwachie hapo, aipeleke mbele kabisa, iwe sheria ili tuweze kuifanikisha. Mlo huo tunaomba kwamba uwe ni mlo safi, uje kwa wakati wa sawa, na iwe ni lishe bora, chakula ambacho kitakuwa na ile inaitwa balanced diet kwa Kiingereza. Asante sana, na mimi naunga mkono.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Jared Okello, Member for Nyando.
Madam Speaker, I thank you very much for the opportunity. And I want to also, on the same breath, thank my brother, Honorable Mureu. A very good guy, first timer, and he's already looking ahead of the pack. Honorable Speaker, we are debating this because we are concerned about the future generation. The future generation relates to the children who are going to school now, who have been disenfranchised by certain things that happen within the education sector. Madam Speaker, taking a tangent from my colleagues, number one is if we are to consider the junior secondary section with disbursement of bursaries, Madam Speaker, that then becomes the 5th class that has to be considered under this category within the high school, Madam Speaker. We are currently servicing.
Wakili Mureu.
Oh, I hope I will
What is out
regain
of
my
order?
time.
You'll start from the 2nd minute.
Is it in order, Madam Speaker, for my honorable member, Bwana Jarrett, to speak when he's hiding? Nobody can see him in this chamber, so kindly, we want to see his mouth moving. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Wakili Mureu, there is nothing out of order. The
Okay.
place that is seated is a seat in this house. Actually, it is one of the high seats in the house, so it is in order for you to proceed.
Okay, thank you, thank you. That's a good banter. So, Madam Speaker, the 5th class that will be added on if we were to consider the junior secondary section on this, that therefore means that we have to up the NGCDF allocation, which will then incorporate the junior secondary school. Otherwise, if we are to move by the current budgetary allocation on bursary and in the entire NGCDF disbursed annually to sub-counties or constituencies, then we shall fall short by a big margin on this, Madam Speaker. We have, as members of parliament, been receiving requests after requests from parents of these children in junior secondary schools. But our regulations, again, under NGCDF regulations and the NGCDF Act, does not talk about junior secondary schools. So we are having our hands tied as members of parliament on the kind of answer to provide to these parents who are constantly at our doorsteps asking for assistance, Madam Speaker. I support fully the idea of increasing the bursary allocation from 35%, Honorable Speaker. If you were to take, for instance, schools in Nairobi, to a larger extent, these schools have already been built. And therefore, you take very little amount to do infrastructural development, yet there are many students who are languishing at home. So Nairobi members of parliament are at a gridlock. They do not know exactly what to do. They have money, but they have a ceiling on bursary allocation. So how we wish that this would be midwifed into a bill, enacted into this house so quickly, so that we can have the latitude to play about with this bursary as and when necessary. If Nairobi, for instance, would have up to 60% of this allocation going to bursaries, then we are going to have lots of students plugged into school who are currently stuck somewhere. Madam Speaker, there is the element of corporate social responsibility within the NGCDF board. I am afraid that this money only benefits those who sit in the NGCDF committee, Madam Speaker. A school, for instance, Ombaka in my constituency, which suffers perennial flooding each and every time, Madam Speaker, cannot access these CSR responsibilities from the NGCDF board, Madam Speaker. Therefore, we need to really look into the real concerns emanating from the ground and not just considering members of the NGCDF committee. Otherwise, all of us, for 349, cannot be all members of NGCDF in order to get the CSR responsibility from the NGCDF board. And I think this has to be properly considered so that our children across the country can also benefit just the same way as others who have been endowed by the NGCDF committee in this house. Madam Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity and I support.
The Honorable Ferdinand Wanyonyi, member for Kwanza.
At the long last, Madam Speaker, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity at the long last. First and foremost, I want to thank Honorable Muriui for coming up with this very important motion. And I wish, Madam Speaker, that the chairman of CDF was also present here. And I think most of these items that you are talking about is basically attached, it's included the chairman of the CDF. And I hope that you have the time to brief him on the members' perspective on the same. And therefore, Madam Speaker, I stand to support this motion because basically what you are saying here is that the funding must be expanded to increase the changes that we have had in the education, which again is our own making. And therefore, I think all we're trying to say is that we should therefore then look at ways and means of increasing the Article 27 of the CDF funding, which of course was in 2015, to include the new program, education program. Madam Speaker, it's important that we look at that because basically population of this country has increased. And therefore, that's why we're having a new curriculum in the education. And therefore, my take, Madam Speaker, is that we should now be able to look at the CDF program afresh. And therefore, I want this again to go down. And I think the most important thing is that the third reading of this particular motion, if it's going to be passed, is that to be able to then to have the increasement, the CDF increasing the 15%, 35% to something like 50 or even 45%, so that can be able to include the new capital. But on the feeding programs, again, I have a question mark because in the past, and ask me, in the past, it was abused. It was abused at the grassroots level because parents actually misunderstood the essence of that program, the feeding program. The extent, and most of members here were there, some of them actually participated in that feeding program. Madam Speaker, you will find that a parent takes a child to school basically at the time of the feeding, and thereafter he takes the child away. That has happened. I saw that. I witnessed that. I saw that in my village. And therefore, if we are going to have the feeding program in the capitation of this particular program, again, we have to be very, very strict on who actually participates in that feeding program to encourage our children to stay in school. Because some parents are so careless that they take the child to school just at the time of feeding. After that, he takes the child away. And they said, no, my child is not feeling very well on the same matter. That again is something that we are going to do that as an observation. And therefore, I want us to very quickly look at this and program so that can be able to come the next year. The SIS program is there and increase the funding in CDF from the current 35% to maybe 45% or more, so they can be able to incorporate these new programs in education. That is quite good, the CPC program, and I hope that to be able to correct some of the issues that we had in the past. With those few remarks, I want to thank you, and I support this program. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, time for this motion has come to the end, and I would like to call upon the mover to reply. The mover can choose to give an opportunity to some of you to make comments.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And for the opportunity to reply. I can see a lot of interest on this bill. I know the members would like to have say a word. Madam Speaker, I want to be magnanimous and give them an opportunity to make their 1 minute remark. I don't need my time for them to make 1 minute remark. Allow me to give Honorable Kwenya 1 minute, John Oyula 1 minute, Honorable Jerry 1 minute, Honorable Mohammed Ali 1 minute, Honorable Member for Kadui, Honorable Makali 1 minute, Doris Donye 1 minute, Agnes Pareyo 1 minute, Naomi Wako 1 minute, and finally, Honorable Sane 1 minute. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
To follow the order, we will follow the order.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Honorable Akili, for this opportunity. Madam Speaker, because I only have a few seconds to make my contribution, I want to say from the onset that many dreams are lost or achieved or realized at the point of basic education. And therefore, this motion could not have come at a better time than this. In my support, in support, I would say recalibration of CDF is something that we've been waiting for a long time, so that then we can be in a position to fund education from primary level to JSS to tertiary level. Therefore, I support this motion, and I seek that members pass this and CDF implements with the speed that it deserves.
The Honorable Mohammed Ali.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Mimi kwa sababu ya muda ninaunga mkono huu mswada wa wakili Moreu na kusema ya kwamba ni vyema NGCDF iweze.
The Honorable Member Foyata. I'm sure you have not forgotten that you are in the Augusta House. I request that you make your steps all the way, bow, and come back. If you need assistance, you can get assistance from your colleague, the one who just called you to cross from the left to the right. Thank you very much. You may proceed, Honorable Mohamed Ali.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa sababu ya hiyo naomba niongezewe muda wangu. Naunga mkono wakili Moreu kwa mswada huu mzuri zaidi na kupendekeza pia hii NGCDF iweze kupewa nafasi, ingawa nafasi iko, iweze kupewa nafasi na nguvu zaidi ya kuweza kuhakikisha ya kwamba hizi pesa zimeweza kufika katika shule ya msingi. Katika kipengee cha CDF section 48 imekubalia, ila imejificha iwekwe wazi na ihakikishe ya kwamba hawa watoto tunaweza wapa pesa ili waweze kupata basari kama wengine na chakula pia. Mheshimiwa Spika, utaona wabunge wengi wanakimbilia mashirika ya kibinafsi kama Tap to Eat ambayo inawasiliana na CDF kuweza kujenga majiko ya kisasa ili chakula iweze kupatikana, kutokana na matatizo haya ya wabunge kutoweza kufika katika shule za msingi. Pia katika kipengee cha katiba article number 53 inasema kila mtoto ana haki ya elimu. Ya C inasema pia mambo ya basic nutrition, ya kuhakikisha ya kwamba kuna afya bora. Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Spika,
The Honorable Oyula. We started from zero, Honorable Mohamed Ali. The Honorable Oyula, you have 1 minute.
Let me begin by thanking Mheshimiwa Wakili for giving me.
We cannot hear you at all. Please move to the next. Move to the next mic.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, let me start by thanking Mheshimiwa Wakili for giving me this 1 minute. I want to support the bill, the motion, and I would ask Mheshimiwa Wakili to go move a bit ahead and ensure that the Ministry of Education takes full responsibility of the child from primary to secondary without moving even to the CDF. In other areas, the child belongs to the ministry or to the government from nursery to the university. So we should come to a stage.
The Honorable Njeri Maina, member for Kirinyaga County.
Honorable Speaker, thank you. I rise to support the motion by my colleague, Honorable Wakili Moreu, and state that, Honorable Speaker, we need to ensure that we are funding JSS so that we can facilitate CBC. Honorable Speaker, even as we speak about funding for schools, we have attendant costs that are not catered for by the government, Honorable Speaker. I support this motion in totality, Honorable Speaker, and I beseech my colleague to bring it as a bill in this House, and we will be ready to support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Makali.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity, and to my colleague for being magnanimous. Article 53 makes basic education a basic right, and the government is supposed to put in measures to ensure that this constitutional imperative is honored. As we speak, Madam Speaker, and as rightly pointed out by Honorable Wakili Moreu, to say that basic education is free in this country is a misnomer. Right now, most pupils are at home, teachers are having difficulties because of non-release of the capitation on time. I will basically support this motion wholeheartedly and state that the government and the